The ballroom lights bathed the stage in a golden glow as I stepped forward, heart pounding beneath the crisp fabric of my navy blazer. To the roaring applause, I accepted the Innovator of the Year plaque from our CTO, an elegant crystal award etched with my name. I offered my practice smile for the cameras, every inch the triumphant product manager who had just delivered the company's latest blockbuster. Beneath that polished facade, however, a storm of guilt and dread churned in my gut. Behind the veneer of applause lay a far more sordid truth. The product my team and I touted as a groundbreaking success was held together by nothing more than smoke and mirrors. A cascade of half-finished features, cleverly hidden bugs, and cleverly selected statistics masked the project's shortcomings. Yet tonight, perception was reality, and everyone believed the story. That I had discovered a novel algorithm for user engagement, hadn't I? I raised the plaque toward the bright overhead lights. Their refractions glittered like a constellation. In that moment, I was the star of the show, the brilliant visionary who had captured the hearts and wallets of our customers. Below the stage, the CEO sat in the front row, nodding in approval as my grin spread wide. In his eyes, I saw pride, and perhaps plans for even greater promotion. A small, terrified part of me wondered, how long could I hold up this illusion before the entire house of cards collapsed? 3 months earlier, I had stood in an identical spotlight, this time in our company's cavernous conference room, presenting the outline for Project Aurora to a skeptical group of senior executives. The agenda promised a revolutionary personalization engine that would analyze each user's browsing patterns, deliver hyper-targeted recommendations, and drive unprecedented engagement metrics. "We're on the verge of something extraordinary," I had declared, voice steady, slides flickering on the wall behind me. Our prototype barely scraped by. Our data scientists had cobbled together a rudimentary recommendation model that worked for a handful of power users. But for most customers, the suggestions were laughably off base. The user interface stuttered under load, the servers strained under peak usage, and our QA team kept discovering show-stopping bugs that threatened to derail the entire launch. We had 6 weeks to make it work, or we would look like fools in front of the board. Yet, I saw an opportunity to shine. As a product manager under pressure to demonstrate impact, I knew how to manipulate the narrative. If we could salvage enough positive data, release a beta quietly, and frame any missteps as planned phased rollouts, we could convince leadership that the glitches were minor and easily fixable. Most importantly, if I delivered a compelling story about skyrocketing metrics, even if they were exaggerated, the executives would fall in line, and perhaps they would reward me for my ingenuity. I gathered my small team, 2 back-end engineers, a UX designer, and 2 QA analysts, in a cramped conference room, whiteboard covered in scribbles and post-it notes. I laid out the plan. We're behind schedule and underwhelming in performance, but we can still salvage this. Starting tomorrow, we'll cherry-pick top-performing users from our pilot to highlight in the demo. We'll green zone the feature flag so only 5% of users see any new code. We'll manually reroute traffic and pressure test the system. If any crash occurs, we'll spin it as a stress test success, that we identified and fixed a critical edge case. In parallel, we need to prepare talking points describing our 50% projected increase in engagement based on our lab metrics, not production data, mind you, but the C-suite won't know the difference. My team's faces registered shock, confusion, even unease. They had joined the company to build genuinely innovative technology, not to manufacture illusions. The UX designer Julia piped up. "But Log, is it ethical? We're misleading people." I tapped the whiteboard, framing our objectives as strategic priorities. "Look, the leadership only cares about growth. If we don't show progress, we get labeled as underperformers. If we show growth, we get budget, headcount, and credit. The end justifies the means, at least for now." The back-end engineers exchanged uneasy glances. I saw their hesitancy, but they also recognized the stakes, their jobs, their careers. I was asking them to bend the rules, not break them entirely. We would not falsify code. We would simply highlight our best outcomes and camouflage the rest. They sighed, reluctantly agreeing. Over the next 2 days, we hunkered down in that stuffy conference room, refining our talking points and orchestrating the golden user flow where everything worked perfectly. At night, Julia and I stayed late. She hunched over her computer, erasing usability issues from the feature set. I sat in the dark, drafting slides that showcased the statistical outliers as though they were the norm. Launch day arrived, and the energy buzzed like electricity through the office. Our tiny launch committee sat at the front of the operations war room, huddled around a bank of monitors tracking live metrics. On screens, colorful charts indicated an uptick in the limited test group's engagement levels, dashed lines spiking upwards. To the untrained eye, it looked like a runaway success. Internally, though, we knew those dashboards reflected less than 500 premium users. When we expanded the rollout to 20% of our user base, the system nearly choked. Page requests queued up, response times crept into the seconds. Nothing catastrophic, but enough that the UX team was scrambling to patch several severe bugs in real time. Meanwhile, the communications team had pushed out a triumphant press release proclaiming, Project Aurora achieves 65% engagement growth in preliminary beta, sourced from our lab-based figures. Our CFO, Lawrence, had touted the announcement to investors over morning calls, promising record growth in Q3. The board didn't bother to ask whether that 65% reflected A/B test conditions or real user traffic. The flash of growth was enough. By midday, the system settled as our engineers optimized the backend. The partial rollout seemed stable, and user metrics stabilized at a modest 20 to 30% increase. Still nothing to scoff at. If I quietly rebranded the downsides as optimization in progress, no one outside my immediate team would notice the half-truth. Then came the all-hands debrief at 4 p.m. I edged to the front of the auditorium, my prepared slides glowing behind me. The CEO, Marissa Chen, watched from the second row. Her expression was unreadable. I took a deep breath, clicked to the first slide. Project Aurora, beta success. I spun through charts, citing user engagement spike and projected 60% revenue lift. The audience leaned in, nodding at my confident delivery. I laid out the caveats. We are in phase 1 of 3, with ongoing optimization required. Future sprints will address stability at scale. The board members offered polite applause, almost ceremonial, but still applause. At the end, the CEO rose. Outstanding work on Project Aurora. This is the kind of innovation and leadership that earns plaudits. We'll accelerate your promotion formality for the next quarter. Congratulations to Megan Lawson, spearhead of Aurora. The applause thundered as I forced another smile, hands trembling as I accepted a round of congratulatory handshakes from my peers. In that moment of glory, I could taste the champagne already swirling in the awaiting reception. But inside, the tension coiled tight. How long could I sustain this illusion before someone discovered the truth? That evening, the company held a lavish reception in our rooftop lounge, a sweeping view of the city skyline sparkling under twilight. Everyone from the marketing faux hawk to the head of engineering mingled under strands of fairy lights and nickel-accented champagne glasses. I drifted through clusters of colleagues, responding to backpats and extraneous praise. Multiple people whispered in my ear, "Nice show today. Looks like Aurora is set to change the industry." I provided the expected gracious responses. "Thank you, we are excited, we'll iterate," etc. Half listening, I scanned the crowd for Julia or any member of my team. But tonight, they were absent. I was alone on a pedestal. The CEO, Marissa, tapped me on the shoulder by the appetizer table. "Megan, that presentation was top tier. The board is extremely pleased. We intend to allocate an additional $5 million to scale Aurora's backend. I'll be nominating you for our Young Executive Award at the annual gala." I nodded, smiling graciously. Inside, a low hum of panic surged. $5 million in budget huge. Now the stakes are even greater to deliver on these promises. I realized that if our next sprints didn't materialize, our house of cards would come crashing down even louder. Worse, everyone would blame me alone for the collapse. I excused myself and retreated to the rooftop's edge, where city lights danced below, and the air carried a whisper of autumn chill. My phone buzzed with a message from Julia. "Congrats on the award. But we need to talk. The new patch isn't holding on the test environment. Let's meet tomorrow at 7 a.m. in the lab." My stomach clenched. I typed back, stalling. "On it. Let's meet. We'll figure this out." I folded my phone and looked out at the horizon. The facade felt too thin to trust. I had duped everyone here, my peers, my superiors, even the board. Before bed, I reviewed lines of minor bug fixes from our most recent sprint. I had told executives all major bugs were addressed, but in truth, dozens of edge case vulnerabilities lingered. When the system faced real-world load, it might crumble. As I lay awake that night, staring at the unfamiliar ceiling in my loft, I replayed the events of the day. The applause, the CEO's nods, the glittering reception. I am the master of this lie, I thought. If it holds. Yet deep down, I recognized an existential question. Was I ready to sacrifice my integrity for the fleeting high of so-called success? In that moment, I told myself I had no choice. The next morning dawned humid and gray. I arrived at the office early, skirting the main entrance to avoid bumping into colleagues who'd want to congratulate me. I took the service elevator to the fourth-floor lab, where Julia waited. She stood over a bank of monitors that displayed diagnostic logs in a cascade of green and red text. The patch we pushed last night failed the integration test. Memory leaks are still happening. Ours are worse than before. How bad? She swiveled the monitor to show me. A graph traced system memory over minutes during a load simulation. Memory usage spiked, then plateaued briefly before shooting through the roof. Within 10 seconds, the server crashed. You see the red marker? That's 5 seconds of peak usage. Logs show an unhandled exception in the new recommendation engine, exactly where we removed the fallback check. So we have a bug that can crash the system under moderate load. We told the board on Tuesday that all stability issues were resolved. Julia nodded, staring into space. We have 10 days until we expand the rollout to 50% of users. At that scale, we'll see catastrophic failures. I pushed off from the desk and paced past rows of workstations. Every developer's eye tracked me with a mix of respect and wariness. They had all heard of my sudden ascent. Megan Lawson, the Innovator of the Year award winner. Now they would learn the dark truth behind the title. We need a plan. Step 1, restore the fallback check. Step 2, optimize the memory cache. Step 3, stress test again. We don't lie about a stability date. We delay the expansion. Julia's shoulders slumped. Delaying the expansion means we'll lose the board's confidence. They already invested $5 million in scaling Aurora. I exhaled, wrestling with my conscience. One more lies or one more truth. The path of rectifying the mistake risked igniting suspicion about the original launch's success. I may have to confess that we never truly fixed the bug before. Some part of me recognized that if I allowed the lie to stand, users would suffer outages, anger would spread on social media, and the backlash would be tremendous. Yet, if I came clean now, I would be admitting I had misled leadership. That admission might cost me my job, my reputation, even the award I had just accepted. The rational part of my mind argued for transparency. We'll fix it now and build trust. But the hungry part of me, the part that basked in the glow of praise, was telling a different story. Keep it quiet. Just plug the hole in time. I weighed the consequences. Realization crashed in I could not continue fabricating success. I owed my team, the company, and myself the truth. I opened my mouth. Julia, we delay the rollout. I'll notify the executive team. Do you have the data points ready? Julia blinked, then ducked her head. Yes, I'll re-enable the fallback checks and run another battery of tests today. In that moment, Two paths seemed to diverge, one where I upheld integrity and one where I preserved my false success. I took a shaky breath. My next words would define everything. I strode toward the elevator, calling our engineering director, Victor Cho, on my cell. Victor, I need a status call in 10 minutes. It's urgent. In his briefing room, the other members of the Aurora leadership team, Victor, Julia, and product analyst Raymond Park, gathered with somber expressions. Megan, thanks for joining. What's up? I swallowed, feeling the sweat at my temples. I need to be transparent about Aurora's so-called success. We exaggerated our performance. We rolled out with known critical bugs, specifically the memory leak we identified last night. If we expand to 50% of users as planned, the system will crash under real-world load. We must delay the expansion and fix the underlying issues. An uncomfortable silence blanketed the table. Victor stared at me, incredulous. You're suggesting we tell the CEO that our metrics were cherry-picked? That the launch we celebrated was built on a lie? Yes. We misled leadership into believing we had stability. In truth, we patched only low-volume edge cases. We can't allow Aurora to implode publicly. We need to own up now before we cause irreparable damage. Julia shifted on her chair, her gaze downcast. Raymond's pen clattered on the table as he opened his notebook, scribbling furiously. If this goes public, or if leadership finds out before we fix it, there's going to be fallout. Should we draft a memo to the CTO and CEO? We need a bulletproof apology and a plan. I nodded, relief softening the knot in my chest. As we assembled the outline for the confessional memo, I felt the weight of my fabricated success lifting, only to be replaced by the anxiety of forthcoming consequences. At 2 p.m., I walked into the CEO's glass-walled office. Marissa Chen looked up from her laptop, expression tempered by mild curiosity. Megan, I hope this meeting is good news. We have the board call in 30 minutes. I extended the memo, sealed in a crisp white envelope. She raised an eyebrow and tore it open, scanning my words. Dear Marissa and Lawrence, I regret to inform you that Aurora's initial success metrics were not fully representative. We encountered unaddressed stability issues, which we masked through a limited beta cohort. To avoid catastrophic failures, I propose delaying the rollout and investing additional time into patching critical bugs. I take full responsibility for this omission and will present a comprehensive remediation plan to the board. Sincerely, Megan. Her eyes flicked to mine, searching for sincerity. The room felt too bright, the late afternoon sun slicing through the tall windows. So, everything we celebrated, the award, the $5 million investment, was based on incomplete data. Yes, I'm sorry. I thought we could fix the issues post-launch without drawing attention. That was a grave misjudgment. Marissa leaned back, fingers steepled. I braced for the scolding or the contempt I might have deserved. You could have lost your job today with this confession. I understand. She tapped her pen on the desk, then exhaled. I appreciate your candor, Megan, and frankly, it's the kind of decision I wish more people made. But you've put us in a precarious position. I will present this to the board. They may choose to reprimand, reassign, or even remove you. She paused, letting her words settle. However, you did the right thing by speaking up. We will delay the rollout and address the underlying problems. For now, continue working with the engineering team on the fix. Prepare for the board meeting. Explain everything clearly. If you're genuine in your remorse, that may be enough to preserve your role. I exhaled, relief and shame mingling. As I left her office, her words echoed, You put us in a precarious position. I had risked it all, but held on to integrity. Now it was out of my hands. That evening, the board convened in the grand conference hall. Long polished table, high-backed chairs, and a panel of 10 executives representing finance, operations, marketing, and the board of directors. They sat gathered like judges, files piled in front of them. The CEO, Marissa, presided. Our agenda tonight: evaluate the status of Project Aurora and the revelations shared by Miss Megan Lawson. Megan, please present your findings to the board. With trembling hands, I advanced to the head of the table, placed my notebook on the glass surface, and cleared my throat.